Welcome back, everyone. We have another CGP Grey video called American Empire. What will this be about? Well, obviously the American Empire, but let's actually see what it's about. Glad you're here. Let's watch.
States is, shockingly, a bunch of states that are united. It was just 13 to start with, but as time marched on, the border marched west, bringing us to today and the 48 contiguous states plus Alaska and Hawaii.
Plus our territories.
Usually drawn in these little boxes, not to scale because Hawaii is in the middle of a vast ocean of deadly nothingness and Alaska is monstrous. Unlike other unions where members can leave if they so choose, statehood is eternal, even for you, Texas. Now, how the federal government works is a story for another time, but at the moment all you need know is that Congress, where national laws are written, is made of representatives sent from the states. Now, there are some non-state gaps not visible on this map.
Indian reservation.
The first is Washington, D.C., the nation's capital, which is a stateless limbo land between Maryland and Virginia. As D.C. is a city without a state, it puts her under the control of Congress, meaning that all the other states get the final say on how D.C. is run, while she doesn't get a vote in anything. It didn't matter when this District of Columbia was basically uninhabited, but since more people live in D.C. now than do in a couple of states,
that's crazy to think about. And like the per capita, like per square mile, is insane probably.
It's an uncomfortable arrangement. The other gaps on this map are the American Indian reservations, which are numerous.
Whoa. I didn't know it was that many. Of course, as you guys can tell, Arizona looks like it has the most amount of land. I did not know. Okay, Iowa has some. Michigan has some? What? Honestly, I'm gonna be quite honest with you guys. I only thought like Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, and Utah had Indian. I did not know. The more you know. We gotta learn more about that.
The United States kind of administers them while sort of treating them as foreign nations, which means you could draw the state boundaries to look like this, because the reservation.
That's insane to think about. Especially, look at that hole in the Arizona spot. Nebraska, South Dakota.
Are kind of apart from those states. But the American Indian reservations are such a full of asterisks, oh so sensitive situation, it's also better as a story for another time. Gaps aside, the continent and Hawaii is mostly straightforward, but there's more than just these United States. When the US ran out of lands to manifest destiny,
Oh, we're going to talk about 1898 to 1900 with our imperialism point, Pre-McKinley or McKinley?
He learned from the best and territorified a whole bunch of islands. First up, Puerto Rico, an organized, unincorporated territory of the US.
I think we got this after the Spanish-American War.
This means she's self-governing to some extent, and that all of the US Constitution doesn't automatically apply on the island. Now, 3.7 million people live in Puerto Rico, which is 91% of the people living on US territorial islands, and more people than live in 21 of the states.
And I think the only reason why statehood has not been asserted to Puerto Rico is the same reason we saw in the 1800s pre-Civil War about the balance of power, given that if we are to give that territory statehood, we would also have to give out representatives and senators, which would make the balance of power between Republicans and Democrats more likely suited towards the Democrats, which means in a Republican Senate and a Republican Congress as a whole, statehood probably would never pass, given that there would be certainty. It would have to be like a loaded Democratic House, Senate, presidency, and maybe even Supreme Court to pass something like a statehood for Puerto Rico, just because of that fact alone.
And the US treats Puerto Rico as a state in almost all but name, which possibly soon she will be anyway.
Like I said, the only way I ever see that happening is the aforementioned a loaded Democratic House, Senate, so forth, presidency, obviously. I mean, not necessarily, but I just don't see it for reasons of balance of power. Same reason why DC isn't a state, even though it's more Like, imagine if we had 52 stars on our, we had 52, then you would soon start to see like Republicans maybe create some sort of other territories or try to split a state. That's the reason, obviously, so many things happened before, but let's keep watching.
Bringing the number of stars to a nice even 51. But Puerto Rico isn't the only organized unincorporated territory. There's also Guam, which was acquired in the Spanish-American War along with Puerto Rico. There's the Northern Mariana Islands, taken from Japan during World War II, and the US Virgin Islands, taken from nobody. Denmark sold her. The people in these territories...
And also, one thing that's not spoken about, it's interesting, this is an American Empire thing. Now, we also, within the American Spanish War, we also took Cuba and we took the Philippines. Subsequently, those were given up after, I think World War I was the Philippines, and then, in a transitional period after World War I. We just did a video in the Philippines if you want to watch that. And then, I can't remember what happened to Cuba.
Are American citizens. In most ways, the territories are just like DC. Congress can override their local governments, and they don't have representation because no state-tation. But otherwise, it's America. Actually, the territories and DC do get to elect congressional representatives who attend all of the meetings but just can't vote in any of them, which is either the worst job in the world or the best job in the world, depending on the kind of person who gets it. Also, since votes for president are based on state population, citizens in the territories can't vote, which, as mentioned in a previous video, leads to the weird situation that Americans who live in foreign countries can vote for president in the state where they last lived, while Americans who live in America, just in a territory, cannot. Along with these unincorporated...
Same thing happens, like, imagine, like, Puerto Rico is... I mean, I'm just gonna tell you, like, Puerto Rico is more left-leaning as a whole in terms of, like, the population as of recent census and whatnot. So, given what we've seen in prior balance of power, that just wouldn't work. Although, I think there was a precedent prior to the Democratic-Republican two-party system about this. I'm not sure.
Organized territories, there are also unincorporated unorganized territories. Actually, quite a few. They are Howland Island, Navissa Island, Wake Island, Jarvis Island, Johnson Atoll, Kingman Reef, Midway Reef, Serranilla Bank, and Bajo Nuevo Bank. Most of these were acquired under the delightfully named Guano Islands Act when the US decided she wanted a bunch of islands filled with bird poop. No, really, the US just straight up wrote a law to declare that those islands were now hers. Unorganized in this system means there's no local government on these islands.
I think they're mainly used in terms of like we have Wake Island. Wake Island, there's an airstrip, so you can go ahead and see. I think a lot of these, I don't know when they were created, but it feels like in terms of long-range bombers for like the Pacific, it would make sense to have like jumping off points. I'm not sure if that's the only reason. It's probably more territorial and I mean, if not us, who else would like China or France or the UK would have claimed these places? So better us than them, I guess. That's the situation I'm seeing.
Because no one lives in these places. Some of them are barely above the waterline. Now, the weird category is unorganized incorporated territories, of which there is one, the Palmyra Atoll, claimed by the US after the totally peaceful annexation of Hawaii. They're currently an uninhabited nature reserve, but incorporated means the US Constitution applies here to...
So you could vote.
To who? The Palmyra Atoll is like that question about a tree falling in the forest. If there are no people for the Constitution to apply to, does the Constitution still apply? Yes. This means if a foreigner gives birth on this uninhabited strip and
they're American,
doesn't die from the nature, their child would be an American citizen. Now, this category is empty. It's where territories go before they become states, when basically the Constitution fully applies, and it was last occupied by Hawaii. We've gone full circle, but there is one territory we've left out: American Samoa.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, because American Samoa and Samoa are two different things, but the same thing.
Home to 55,000 people. Uniquely, American Samoans don't get to be citizens, but instead are American nationals. They can live in the States, but can't vote in presidential elections unless they go through the immigration process like any foreigner, even though in all other ways they're indistinguishable from citizens. This is unique to American Samoa, and there seems to be no reason for it other than that Congress hasn't gotten around to updating the system. American Samoa is in the no government category, like it's Lord of the Flies over there, which it obviously isn't. So American Samoa with its organized government needs to go over here, and Puerto Rico, essentially a state, needs to go over here, and the
Maybe. I think when this video was created, there was more scouting for Puerto Rico to become a state than there are now.
empty Palmyra Atoll needs to go over here. But don't hold your breath for the paperwork to make its way through Congress anytime soon. So that's all the territory of the United States, but there is one final thing to talk about. 3 tiny nations: Palau, the Marshall Islands, and the Federated States of Micronesia. These
Interesting.
are separate countries with UN seats and everything, but they have a, quote, compact of free association with the United States. The deal is that the US provides economic support and military defense to the compact nations in return for being allowed to build military bases there. Also, compact citizens can live and work in the United States and vice versa. Americans wanting to live abroad, you have 3 easy options. So that's America: 50 states, many reservations, 1 district, lots of island territories, some even with people, and 3 tiny associated countries.
Wow. And the one thing about this is I only see this shrinking. Now it just really depends. I mean, as of recent, like we've jokingly, and I don't know how jokingly serious can be, created an Venn diagram between what is Greenland and what is Canada in terms of like territorial assignment, but I don't see that happening. I don't see Denmark selling Greenland or annexing, and I definitely do not see Canada not becoming autonomous, uh, or vice versa. Interesting though, like I don't see this shrinking. Sorry, I only see this shrinking. I don't see this growing. Like unless there's like a unforeseen war. For example, if like Mexico falls to the wall on like a war to reclaim part of New Mexico, Texas, something like that. You could possibly see like a DMZ, or you could see something. Maybe an island could be sold to the US, given like if a country, because there's a lot of Caribbean nations that are owned by um, European nations. So, or sorry, there's a lot of territory in the Caribbean owned by European nations. So maybe if something fiscally happens where you have a country that needs money fast, or for some reason they just want to sell an island, that could easily expand this. Um, we'll have to deep dive into the Indian reservations. If you guys have a specific video on that, please let me know. Because that's a vastly interesting conversation. Because just look at that map. Let's just go back to that real quick. That's right here.
Them as foreign nations, which means the United States kind of administer, are the American Indian reservations, which are...
Look at that. I mean, there's probably. I mean, look. Obviously, if you guys already know, but like these lines within the states are counties, and some counties are completely shaded, specifically South Dakota, and then majority of some of these counties are shaded otherwise. But there's a lot of conversation here between like autonomy and history and heritage and Trail of Tears, and there's the Manifest Destiny and all of that, which I don't think this conversation is talked about enough. And I don't think, especially when you look at a map like this, I don't think many people would understand what this means. They'd probably think that, okay, we're looking like Swiss cheese, do we get nuked? So very fun, interesting conversation to have here. And I'm wondering, are those Indian reservations in Mississippi, Louisiana, and Texas, or are those just Those are dots, and there's some in New York too. Obviously, they were, and there's one in Maine. It's, oh man, yeah, I guess I do see that, and there's one in North Carolina. Wow, very interesting stuff, guys. Then, of course, another fun CGP Grey video. If you guys have any recommendations for our next CGP Grey video, please leave in the comments below, as well as the Indian thing. But thank you guys so much for joining me. We got tons of videos on this channel, so if you love history, hit that subscribe button and look through our catalog. You have a specific history or educational video or channel that you'd like for us to react to, please put down below and I will check it out just for you. Until next time, peace out and bye-bye.